We're at a commercial conversion to residential project in Marlow today. This project was fraught with planning issues. We've got a listed building at the front, a dance studio at the rear, and we're converting this whole site into 8 flats for a developer that we work with very regularly. Later in this video, we're going to be talking about some of those problems that we've had through the planning process, how we've overcome them, and what you need to think about when working with listed buildings yourself. So let's go and have a look around inside. So in buildings like this, where we have got a 1800s listed building on this side and a 1980s new build office block and dance studio, there's obviously different things that we need to think about in terms of wall build-ups, floor build-ups, the age of the building, and things from an architectural perspective that we have to think about when designing and improving the energy efficiency, for example, and dealing with building regulations, depending on the age of these buildings. So we're going to talk about a bit of that in this video as well. So we're actually in one of the 2-bedroom ground floor flats, and as of an agent meeting yesterday, we've been tasked with changing this layout to try and squeeze in an extra ensuite bathroom. We've got 2 bedrooms on the left here, and as we walk through to this space, this will be the open plan kitchen, dining, living area. What you can't see at the moment, maybe we can pop up an old photo, is there was a stair core that went up to the first floor here, which is now being removed. We've infilled the floor, and this is going to become a nice big kitchen, dining, living space for this 2-bedroom ground floor flat. So this part of the building was actually a dance studio. It's actually great that we've got loads of head height in here because it will make the flats feel a lot bigger. We've managed to squeeze a couple of studios in this part of the building. This area will become a 2-bedroom flat, and we've installed, or will be installing, a set of stairs up to the roof space where we've got 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, and then a 1 bed at the end, which we've actually designed to be more DDA compliant, which means sort of disability, wheelchair access. Because of the demographic of the area and who we're targeting here, it is downsizers. So that's why we've decided to design that flat in that way with the wheelchair access. So as we move further into the site, we walk past the dance studio into a courtyard area at the back where we've got access to the 2-bed and the 1-bed. There's a canopy behind you, which we're going to be demolishing. And this will be some really cute courtyards for all of the buyers and the occupants of these flats. What we've tried to do on all of these flats to the rear is give a courtyard garden to all of them. So along the pathway that we've just walked down, we've got a small narrow walkway coming to this end section, but each of the flats along this route will have a small courtyard garden. The boundaries will be brick with iron railings on top and some landscaping in front of them to just give it that nice homely feel. So we're actually up in what was a server room, which was kind of the loft space of the dance studio, so kind of wasted space. But what we've managed to do is add some dormers, add a couple of Velux windows, and create 2 really good sized bedrooms up here with 2 ensuites. So one of the ensuites is going to go here. The Velux window is going to be increased in size. We've got a nice naturally lit shower room, which comes to about sort of here. So it's tight when you're looking at ceiling heights and rafters going up. You kind of have to be really careful with head heights in shower rooms and things like that. But if you're efficient and you know what works and what doesn't, like we do, you can make these things work and add a lot of value to developments. One of the issues that we had throughout the planning process, and still is an issue if I'm honest, is we wanted to add some conservation style Velux windows on this right hand side. Because the buildings to the front are listed along the high street, the conservation officer felt that having roof lights on this elevation would ruin the aspect and the views from the grade 2 listed buildings on the right hand side. Very frustrating, given that if you look at the satellite view, which will show on the screen now, almost every commercial property and building to the rear of these listed buildings have large Velux windows that aren't even conservation style in the extensions. So why they're bothered about 3 extra conservation style roof lights on this roof elevation, I don't know, but these are the things we have to deal with. And that's our job as the architect, to liaise with the local council and try and get as much as we can to help our clients. So when I was downstairs, I mentioned about a stair core that came up. We filled that in. I'm standing where the old staircase used to be. This will be another kitchen, dining, living space. I mentioned earlier, we are working with 2 different property types here. We've got a 1980s cavity brick and block section, which is the studio and the offices this way. And right next to me here is the listed building, which is actually late 1800s. You can see the different style of brickwork. We've got Flemish bond here, which means sort of 1 brick, half brick, 1 brick, half brick. On here we've got full brick, full brick, full brick, just a stretcher bond. You've got the beautiful old sash windows with sort of standard regularization of size. One of the things that the planners wanted us to do is actually the window that you see behind me, which was built in the sort of late 1980s as an extension to this listed building. They want us to actually remove that, reduce it in size and make it more akin to what would have been the original scale of proportion of window, like this one with the glazing bars. So not ideal really that they're asking us to kind of change something that's been there for many, many years, but fundamentally they pull the strings more often than not, especially on listed buildings, and that was something that they wanted us to do in order to get the approval. We're knocking through an opening just behind you there, so this window will actually become a lot bigger. We're going to be extending this up to here and creating a new doorway into the 3-bed flat that's behind these walls. You might wonder how we get up to here. Well, part of the planning approval that we got and the listed building approval was to put a new external staircase up to this platform, and this will be the entrance to the 1-bed flat at this level, and this will be the entrance to the 3-bed flat at this level. So every flat actually in this development is a masonette. Now stood in the front section of the building, you can sort of hear the road noise going past at the front. We're in the listed building at the front of this site. Straight above you, you can see the very original lard and plaster ceilings, which have clearly been retained by the previous owner, and we're not going to be touching that because fundamentally when you're working with listed buildings, there's not actually a lot that you can do around the historic fabric of the building. They don't like you playing around with that too much, and if they do, they want to be on top of you to understand exactly what you're doing, that you're replacing like for like, for example. To put that into perspective, during our planning permission process, we actually wanted to remove this stair because we are separating off the upstairs. We don't need this stair, it's taking up space. Ideally, we would have got rid of it and had more space for our kitchen, dining, living space, but the conservation officer doesn't want us to remove it, even though I actually don't think it's original, but they just refuse to let us remove it. So this is a top tip for anyone looking to undertake extension works, refurbishment works, or development works. You are legally obliged to undertake an asbestos survey. So before you start any works, you need to undertake a refurbishment and demolition survey to make sure that the site is safe for when your contractors come on site. Unfortunately, with this project, we found very small traces, and I'm talking, there were 4, I think, half a metre squared boards of asbestos material that somebody had clearly thrown in the loft before we took ownership, that we had to remove. That's cost £28,000 to remove, which is mad, but we have to be compliant, we have to be safe, and we had to get the hazmat suits out. It's a real undertaking to remove that type of asbestos. We are having to upgrade the thermal fabric of this listed building because this wall is only a 9-inch thick brickwork. There's no insulation whatsoever. So we will be insulating and plasterboarding internally to give the upgraded thermal value that's needed from building regulations perspective. One of the other things that is key on this site from a fire perspective, when you get beyond 45 meters of travel distance to the fire engine pulling up and trying to put out a fire, you effectively have to have different methods of suppression or detection to counteract that length of time that it takes to get to put out a fire at the other end of the site, for example. So the rear unit, we will have to install a sprinkler system to counteract that travel distance issue. Thanks for tuning into this video. We do lots of home tours on the Homes by Aura YouTube channel, many property developments like this and private homeowner house extensions and refurbishments. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make a like and comment down below. And if you want to see more video tours on our YouTube channel, head over here.